Cheers. Cheers. Here we go.
Cheers. Hey, welcome back to Friends in Austin. Today, my guest is Stephanie Herrera, who is a VP at a global tech recruitment company, a Salesforce advocate and influencer. And she also started a movement called Salesforce Saturday, which I want to hear more about, Stephanie. And I do want to note that you did all this without a bachelor's degree, which I find personally interesting because I didn't finish college. And I have a lot of debates about people about how much college is worth or if they should or shouldn't go. We can dive more into that later. But thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So I wanted to start off with, I know your audience obviously knows a lot about Salesforce, but not everyone does. I'm sure most of us have heard of it. Can you tell me what Salesforce is used for and why is it so popular and kind of how you found this passion in Salesforce?
Absolutely. And actually part of what I like to do is crowdsource information. So what I did is reach out to my community and ask them to give some feedback on what they think Salesforce is and how it's presented. And so I've got a few here that I want to read. My favorite from it. One is from Cole Conroy. He owns Roycon Consulting here in Austin, Salesforce consulting company. And he described it as Salesforce is a Swiss Army knife of business technology. Businesses can leverage the Salesforce platform to run every aspect of their business with state-of-the-art user experience, security, connectivity, analytics, accessibility, and mobility. If you sell, support, service, or manage, Salesforce can be leveraged to do the job better. So that, in a sense, is one way to do it. Patricia Boyce, who leads our user groups, described it as a filing cabinet. You've got all these files within it, and you put labels on it, and you assign them to different groups, or whether it be a company, a business. And that filing cabinet is very important. And if it runs the business, and if the office were to burn down, you would lose that very vital information. But a couple of different ways to look at Salesforce. It's hard to describe it and make people understand who don't do it. My family has often called me Chandler Bing of the family because they don't understand still to this day what Salesforce is and what it does, no matter how many times I try to explain it to them. You just basically have to be a user who's in it and who's using it. And even then, every instance is different. They truly are snowflakes. You can work for one company and use Salesforce, and another company will use it in an entirely different way because it's based on the business processes and what they're trying to accomplish. Okay. So hopefully that helped a little bit.
It does help a little bit. So can you tell me about Salesforce Saturday then?
So Salesforce Saturday, I started that back in 2015. At the time, I was a Salesforce manager. So I was managing teams and not quite in the weeds. And I like to be technical and felt like I was losing touch with the technical capabilities because Salesforce is a massive, intensive, complex technology. And again, every business uses it differently. I needed to get certified. So I sent out a message to my community here in Austin, said, hey, I'm going to be hanging out at the Starbucks. I'm going to study for my Dev 401 certification, and I just want to play around, get my hands dirty in the Salesforce instance because I can't just do whatever I want at work because, they've got certain needs, and it's not always aligned with what I want to play with. And so Nyla Shawnee showed up. She was one person that showed up. She showed up 15 minutes in, and she ran in, and she was like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I was like, I'm just glad you're here to do this with me. I'm not by myself. And then after that, a few more people showed up, and basically it's just people were coming together and solving each other's use cases that we run into whenever we're working. A lot of people who do Salesforce, especially on a smaller scale, when you're working in Salesforce, you're the only person that does it. I come from a background where I was used to being on a team, whether it be at Dell or Apple, and I had a team that did what I did. And if I ran into a problem, I could reach out to them to how do I solve this? But when you work at a company and you're the only person who does Salesforce and nobody else even knows how to solve problems, you kind of find out, it's like you're by yourself. So this created a team for us to lean on. And then it took off. Phoenix, Arizona asked if they could do a Salesforce Saturday. And then after that in India, New Delhi, we had 5 Salesforce Saturdays in India. And then Amsterdam, the Netherlands had 5. Then we had people in Tokyo reached out. And so it's just grown into a global organization where the people all over the world are having Salesforce Saturdays. They come, it varies. Some meet once a month. Austin, we were meeting every week for Salesforce Saturday, and you leverage each other. We keep in touch with each other over Twitter. I have someone in Ukraine, Dubai. It's unbelievable how many the reach that it's had. And it just goes to show to me that people have a desire to learn and they want to. They just don't know how to go about it. If you give them a vehicle, they'll get in it and they'll run with it. And something else that I noticed with this is that by allowing the users who showed up to drive the content. I didn't drive the content. You show up, you have a problem, somebody there can help you. What that did is it elevated people into leadership roles. people who normally wouldn't raise their hand to volunteer to lead something because they're intimidated or a little scared. In Salesforce Saturday, it just happened naturally. You're sitting next to somebody and you're helping. So not only were people learning, but people who had the knowledge were growing their leadership skills. So we created what I like to call my leaders of leaders, and I see it all over the world. And it's people who normally would not raise their hand. And for me, that's probably been the greatest gift out of it, is to see people who were invisible become visible as leaders who normally wouldn't have stepped up and done that.
That's interesting. So how much do you have to get involved with and manage that on a day-to-day basis? Is it the kind of thing that you create it and you create a template for it and then you say, hey, here's how we do it. You can do it wherever you want, or are you more hands-on than that?
So in the beginning, I had to be more hands-on. I absolutely had to be more hands-on. I had to meet with anybody who wanted and was curious in it. I would mentor them. I would guide them. I would try to explain what the spirit of Salesforce Saturday is. Basically, if somebody walks in, because at the time, crazy world we lived in, we all met in person. If somebody came, you made the effort. You had 3 people who would make sure that they were included. That you didn't allow them to sit off by themselves. You wouldn't ask them, what are you here for? What are you looking for? And then you gave them make sure you're giving them these certain resources. Make sure they're getting them on the success community. Make sure they know about certifications. Make sure they know about different user groups. So I showed them, the very foundation of what they needed to do for it to be a true Salesforce Saturday. And then just making sure that they felt included, making sure that they felt it was a warm, welcoming space to come to. I had one guy that after he came the first time, he thought we were a cult and we were going to do some pyramids game. He's like, he thought we were, he just didn't believe that everybody was so nice. So at first I did do that, but now it's kind of grown because now I have leaders of leaders who can do that now. So it has scaled itself. I still meet, I have a global team that a couple of times a year we meet and we make sure everybody's staying on track. We have this thing called Global Salesforce Saturday where before it was twice a year, but all the groups all over the world come together for a 24-hour period, and we compete against each other for badges and points in 3-hour increments, and see who earns the most badges and points. And it's a really cool experience to be part of that. So things like that, I'm still very much involved with.
So I imagine that the badges and points thing, I'm sure a lot of people are contributing a lot of different ideas, and this kind of thing is taking a life of its own.
Oh, absolutely. From it, in order to keep up with the badges, we have a guy, Johan, who's in Sweden, who created a site so we could keep track of it. And now that site has turned into something that the whole global community uses to keep up with their points and certifications. It's absolutely, it's grown. It birthed its own different technologies and different capabilities from Salesforce Saturday.
So did that make a big impact on you and your career and help you out? Did that make changes to you?
Oh, absolutely. When I first started Salesforce Saturday, I'm very much an introvert. I'm very much heads down. I've always been told you got to lift your head up and let people know what's going on. One thing that I noticed with Salesforce Saturday in Austin, I would always take a picture of us afterwards, and I would do it with cut my eyes off because cut my cheeks off because I thought I don't like my full cheeks, and I would just have my eyes and everybody behind me. So I was at least in the picture, but just only part of me. And I would take a picture of everybody because I noticed that it was a very diverse group. It was young and old, white, Indian, few African Americans, few Hispanics, male, female, different backgrounds. But when we walked into that door, none of that mattered, and we all came together to teach each other and skill each other up. So I would take a picture of that, just so I would have it to show people this is who's coming to this, because there is a stereotype in technology that it's only old white men, and it's no, it's not. This is what it looks like. And so I would take those pictures, and Tammy Eastling, who was my friend at the time, she said, you need to share this. You need to be putting it on Twitter. The world needs to know what you're doing and what it looks like. And I was did not want to work Twitter. It's a lot of work. If you're on Twitter, it's work responding to everything. And she would nag me, so I would post the pictures every time we'd meet. And eventually that's how people found out about it. And eventually Salesforce did a story on it, did a small 3.5-minute film on it, and showcased it at Dreamforce, their big yearly conference, which has 170,000 people attend. And I was on the stage with Marc Benioff, and they did the film and showed it. So
how much public speaking had you done before that?
None. I haven't had any,
none
yes.
To speaking at Dreamforce?
So I had spoken once at Dreamforce to talk about the Girly Geeks, which is something else I had, Girly Geek chapters, which is something else I had started 2 years before. So that was, it was 2014 when I did that. But as far as being on a stage like that with anybody, no. And then even then, when it was Monday, Dreamforce was when the Dreamforce was going to happen. I found out 3 days before it that I was going to be on stage with them. They called me and said that everybody loves your film. They want to make it the highlight at Dreamforce. and you're going to be on stage with Marc Benioff. And we can't tell you what he's going to ask you because he doesn't tell us. And so as somebody who likes to be prepared, I'm a very type A person, I was freaking out. And I had just packed, like, I had already had my stuff packed. I had jeans and T-shirts. I was very casual. And I was like, this was like 4:30 in the afternoon, and my flight was leaving the next morning at 7 a.m. So once I got to San Francisco, I had to go find something to wear. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on stage. So no, I had no preparation at all whatsoever for it. I was just I was thrown into it, sink or swim.
How did you do?
I think I did okay. I was a little nervous. I tripped over one word, but you
remember that one word? You're
yeah,
like, I tripped over one word.
I did. I do remember it. But I have a couple. I've got Salesforce Saturday, but I'm also involved with Pep Up Tech and Miravis. And at the time, I was on the board for Texas Dreaming. And when they did the film, I had talked about all of those things. I had talked about everything that I'm involved with. They sat me down for like 4 hours and we had a conversation. But the film ended up only being about Salesforce Saturday. So I felt bad. I was like, all these other things that I'm a part of and that I work really hard to get visibility to didn't get mentioned in this film. So when I'm on stage with Marc, I need to figure out a way to give them a shout out and bring visibility to them. So right before we went on stage, I asked what they called handlers, the two people, Holly and Becky, that worked for Salesforce, who were like preparing me for everything. I was like, is it okay if I invite Marc Benioff to our Texas Dreaming event in Austin? Like, you do you, whatever you want to do. So I was like, okay. And he didn't know that was going to happen. So obviously I didn't clear it with him. And he got up there and he pulled me up on stage and he asked me a question. And then he was like pretty much done with me. And immediately I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
No.
Y'all just put me through the ringer. And I grabbed his hand. I was like, no, you're not going. I was like, I'm thinking in my mind, and he's big, tall guy. And I grabbed his hand and I'm thinking, no, I'm not done. You got your say. It's my turn now. And so I was like, I grabbed his hand. I was like, thank you for this. I said, it's obviously Salesforce Saturday. Everybody knew about it. I said, but I just wanted to invite you to Austin, Texas in June. And I said the date so everybody could hear it as for Texas Dreaming, so that you can meet my Miravis vets, my Pep Up Tech students. We'll all be there. We would love to have you. And he was just like, kind of like, oh, well, I would love that. And so, and they said the whole.
You invited him on the spot?
On the spot. And no one knew I was going to do that. Parker Harris, his co-founder, you can see the video. He's like rolling in his seat. And will.i.am was sitting behind me. will.i.am is laughing. They're all just like, can't believe I did this. And I didn't really think anything of it. I had a goal. And it was to bring visibility to everything that I was working hard on and that they were working hard on and didn't get mentioned in the film. So I felt, and nobody knew I was going to do it. My boyfriend at the time, when he saw me grab his hand, he was like, oh my God, what is she doing? He freaked out. The director who did my film was like, watch this. She's about to pull Stephanie Herrera. He had faith in me more than my boyfriend at the time did. He was like, watch this. She's about, and so it worked out. And afterwards, his whole executive team came up to me and were just like, your new nickname is just, it's Charles of Steel, whatever you want, you get it. He's like, nobody has ever done that to Marc Benioff. We've had CeeLo, we've had CEOs. They all are like, they do what he says and he runs the show, and like, that's never ever happened. And then I was worried. I was like, oh no, he's gonna be mad at me now. I was like, that wasn't my intention. It wasn't like, it's just, I had a goal, but they were. And afterwards, in San Francisco, I had people coming up to me. They either loved the film and were just like, your story is so inspiring, or they're like, I can't believe what you did to Marc Benioff. It was two different camps. They're just like, I can't believe what you did on stage there. And as a matter of fact, at the time, I worked for Spreadfast, and I didn't tell them why I was going to San Francisco. And it's a social media platform, so they were monitoring the trends at Dreamforce. And they reached out to me, and they're like, hey, wait, Steph Herrera is trending in San Francisco right now. You're the #1 trending name in San Francisco and in India. Is that you? I was like, yeah, I meant to tell you. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's me. And they're like, India? I was like, well, that's one of my biggest Salesforce communities is in India. So yeah, it caused a bit of a stir, and it definitely did. It helped my career. It helped what I was doing. It's one of those instances where when you give, you receive. So yeah, absolutely. It turned my life completely upside down. And I'm still trying to keep up with it. When I think it's going to slow down, it hasn't. And that was back in 2017 when that happened. And it's just been full speed ahead. It's been crazy for me. I still can't believe it. I still pinch myself.
That's crazy. So have you talked to Marc about that moment since then?
No, he's kind of busy, but we've been involved. So he's invited me to other stuff. Last year we were in Indianapolis. They had Trailblazer Day. Ivanka Trump was a special guest of his. And so I was one of 3 people that were on a panel with him and Ivanka. You know, he at New York City right after that, there was New York City World Tour. He had me there with Parker Harris as a keynote speaker. So he definitely, you know, he's the great thing about Marc Benioff is, you know, he comes from a great family. He comes from a fluent background. He, you know, he really didn't have to work another day in his life if he didn't want to, but he's created this great companies, you know, Salesforce, and he and Parker Harris created the platform, but he goes out of his way to highlight people who do good. He goes out of his way to elevate people who are doing good things in the world. And he did that for me. And I wasn't even like, when they filmed it, I didn't even think, when they came to Austin and filmed it, it was a 20-person crew. I filmed it and I didn't think anything of it. Right after that, I got on a plane to India. It was my first time ever leaving the country, and I was a keynote speaker. I was a speaker at India Dreaming, and I got on the plane. I didn't think anything else of it. I was like, I did a film, and that was it. And I was just like, please don't let it be cheesy. That's all I cared about. And I had no idea how that little film that he pushed. Because prior to that, they would do films, but it was always on companies like Burberry, Coca-Cola, Nordstrom's. They always highlighted companies. And so this was the first time where they actually highlighted an individual person who in their mind was doing good, and was, you know, as my director at the time, both put it, had a ripple effect on the community. And so that was, you know, Marc driving that. He wanted to highlight somebody from within the community. So yeah, he's just, you know, he's a great human being. I have it, you know, if I want to be in touch with him, I can. He came to South by Southwest in 2018 and had a VIP party and invited all of us who were in the Texas area to attend it. It was a party that he threw for Ashton Kutcher. You know, Elon Musk was there. Snoop Dogg was there. There were quite a few, and we got to be there as his special guests and meet them. And I did talk to him. I did hang out with him at that time and met his wife. And he's, you know, he's very gracious and just offers himself up. He's like, you know, I do know if I need something from him, I am at liberty to go to him. I won't abuse that, but I do know I can.
Very cool. It sounds like, you know, that pushed you. Oh, nice.
So you can see him back there. He's laughing. That's when I grabbed the hand.
Nice. Yeah, we get a screenshot of it. So that seems like it sent you on a path of doing a lot of public speaking, which you hadn't done before.
No, I hadn't. Not really.
So how was that transition, and is that something that you're very much enjoying now?
I've gotten more comfortable with it. At first, it was very uncomfortable. Like I said, I'm an introvert. I like to be behind the scenes. That's why I love the Salesforce platform, because you're behind the scenes, you're a technologist, you're creating and solving problems for your end users, which are your coworkers, and you're making them successful. So I like to be behind the scenes doing that. And this has kind of thrust me into an area where I wasn't quite comfortable with, but I've grown into it. I've had a lot of support from people at Salesforce, their employees, their marketing team. They've been amazing and just given us the support that we need. The communities that I'm part of, they've helped sharpen me. They've helped me see things in myself that I didn't see. So it's gotten more natural for me. I've learned that I'm a bit of a storyteller. I've used that to my advantage, but I still get nervous every time. Even like coming to this, like I'm so nervous. I've never done anything like this. It's like, please have a glass of wine, because I'm gonna need it to take the edge off.
Well, what's funny is you insisted on having a studio audience,
because I need to feed off of that. I can't I've learned that I need to have, but it's a studio audience that I love and trust.
This is like the first episode with the studio audience, I believe.
Yes. It's a studio audience. I love and trust that, because I do need that to like read the room. That's what has made doing virtual so hard, because you can't read the room. Like I want to know that whenever I speak or whatever my audience is that I'm adding value, that I'm not wasting their time. I don't like to, thank you. I don't like to have my time wasted. It's very valuable, so I don't want to waste their time. And when you can't see them and see how they're responding and to what you're saying, you don't know if you're hitting it or not. And again, that's something that's very important to me, is like making sure my audience gets what they need from why I'm speaking. But yeah, no, I've not had any professional. It's on my list to get some professional public speaking and training. But it's different, and definitely wasn't something I set out to do, but I've kind of fallen into and making the best of it.
Okay, so it sounds like you were very much kind of in the weeds grinding. You wanted to learn and get better at Salesforce, so you wanted to spin up your own instance, which, I mean, I don't know that everyone's going to understand that, but it sounds like, like a company has an instance of Salesforce that they use that is specific to their company.
Right.
But if you want to play around in that system, you can't really do that. You make a new instance and then you play around inside of that.
You have a sandbox. And it's like with a lot of other technologies. You have sandboxes that you can play in. But even then, that sandbox is a duplicate of their production instance.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
So you're still limited. It's like what they need it for. Whereas the Salesforce Saturday, we had our own developer orgs and we could do whatever we want. And now they call them playgrounds. Trailhead, it's a free online platform that you can go and learn. So that's what I wanted to do. Is like I'm a true nerd at heart. And I was like, this instance that I was working on was very heavily coded. I'm not a coder. I'm not I'm more declarative. I'm not programmatic. One day I would, I would love to be able to do that. I just don't have enough time. But I wanted to go and play around with it and grow my skill set and, see what else it could do. That's basically a bunch of us nerds getting together to see like what can we break? What can we create? And then at the same time, helping each other solve our real use cases at work. Because again, there's so much to Salesforce. There's no way anybody can know all of Salesforce. And if someone tells you they do, they're full of it. They do 3 releases a year. And each release has anywhere from 400 to 600 pages. So there's just no way that one person can know all of that. And that's where Salesforce Saturday came in. You're crowdsourcing the knowledge. Okay,
so you were trying to just get better at what you do, and then you end up making this whole, which turns into a global movement, Salesforce Saturday. You go and speak at this conference. You put Marc in this awkward moment. It starts trending a lot. And then that kind of turns you into what I'm calling it, a Salesforce advocate and influencer. And that's a big part of your career now. Would you say that's true?
No, absolutely. Yes, definitely a big part of it. Yes.
And so what do you do right now? I mean, I know you're a VP at a tech recruitment company. We can get into that more, but I want to know more about kind of like once the whole Salesforce trajectory really took off, kind of like how did things progress from there?
So once it took off, so even before that, because Salesforce being in demand like it is and not enough people knowing how to do it. The last time I went looking for a job was 2011 when I got back into the Salesforce at the end of 2012. And ever since then, I have people coming to me, trying to hire me, trying to throw money at me. Like you've got the business acumen, you got the technology part. So I've always been not lacking for a job. So that was already the case. But then once this happened, that was, intensified.
Became more of a known name,
yeah,
really.
Yes, absolutely. And it became known because what I did in my spare time with Pep Up Tech, Miravis, and Salesforce Saturday was skilling people up, connecting them to other people within the network who could help them find jobs, and teaching them how to present themselves, teaching them how to interview, teaching them how to negotiate. So in a way, I was helping people get jobs in my spare time, where during the day I was a technologist. And so I had people reaching out to me from the recruitment world saying that, maybe you should consider going into recruitment. And I was like, I don't know anything about staffing and recruitment. I'm a technologist, I'm a nerd. And they're like, no, actually you do. You've been doing it for free. Why not get paid for it and combine the two into one? So prior to that, I was just growing my career. I was, went from solo admin to manager to senior manager to director. And at first, I didn't even want to be a manager. I was like in the weeds. I don't want to be responsible. I know I'm going to perform at a certain level. I don't know if other people are going to perform at that same level. And I just didn't want to deal with it. But my manager who asked me to become a manager was like, I want you to own the instance and I want you to manage it. Would you want to be a manager? And I initially told him no. I said, I have no interest in that. But my boyfriend, again, the same one at the same time, is like, you said he's the best manager you ever had. Why not learn from him? I went back and said, okay, yes, I'll do that. But 3 months later, he left. And left me. So I didn't get to learn from him too much, but he's like, once I put you in this position, I could leave. I couldn't leave before because no one could own the instance. So I went from manager, then to senior manager. And then after that, I knew I wanted to be a director. I just kind of wanted to keep progressing with my career. And I told the company I was with at the time that, my next role is director level. I'm like, oh, absolutely. We'll make sure that happens. And then, probably like 2 months later, they made somebody else a director who had no management experience and knew less about Salesforce, which is fine. And that person is great. And it was like, and when I found out, I let them know, I was like, well, then I'm leaving. I won't be here to help you on that journey because that was what I want to do next. So the day that I made that decision, I got reached out to from Spreadfast. And they were looking for a solutions architect, which is not a manager, that's an individual contributor. And I let them know, I'm not looking for individual contributor. I like developing people. My next role is director level. And she said, well, for the right person, we'll see if we can do that. Let's meet and have coffee. So we met and had coffee. We totally hit it off. And she's like, I think we can do this director level role. And so then she emails me, it's like, what's your salary requirements? And I emailed her back and she was like, oh, I didn't know Salesforce directors made that much. That's outside of our budget. I was like, that's fine. I'm on my way to Dreamforce. No worries. I said, but if you ever get serious about somebody owning the instance, let me know. If I'm still available, I think we can do great things. 24 hours later, she emails me and says, I pitched you to our CEO and we can meet your salary requirements. Will you please come in to interview with our team? I was like, absolutely. I interviewed with 7 different people early in the morning. Yes. Well, I required it had to be before my work because I was like, I'm not going to interfere with my current work schedule. So they were all there early. And what I found out later is none of them usually roll into work till about 9:30. So they probably weren't too happy that I had them all there early. But after it was done, the HR walked me to the elevator and was like, I'm sure you know, everybody loved you and we're going to make you an offer this afternoon. And that was how I got my first director level role. Mm-hmm. And there at Spreadfast, while I was there, Lynn Atchison came to work for us. She got CFO of the year in Austin. The year she was there, she helped take HomeAway public, and I got to report to her directly. And one of the first conversations we had, she was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, I see myself as a really good senior director. And she's like, well, why not VP? I was like, I don't want to do VP. I was like, no, it's too much office politics. I don't want any of that. And she laughed at me. She laughed in my face. She's like, oh, you think you're not going to have to deal with office politics as a director? Well, guess what? You are. Just wait. And I was just like, whoa, okay. And she was right. So after that, I was like, okay, maybe I should, push for VP. And she's the one. So along the way, I've had people pushing me out of my comfort zone and pushing me to where I need to go, and also helping me negotiate how to get to that next level. One of the things that's so great about having a community and a network that's important is, again, you can crowdsource what you need to know, because you don't always know what you don't know. Perfect example, one of my really good friends, Cindy, when I was interviewing for director, I was like, what do I need to think about? She's like, well, at this level, you get a sign-on bonus. I was like, what, you get a sign-on bonus? I was like, I wouldn't have even asked for that. So it's those kind of things that has been so great. This community that I built has actually given back to me and helped elevate me and helped given me a better life as a result. And then same with the VP. When they reached out to me, I was a director, and I was like, then the recruitment companies came to me. I was like, my next role is VP. And I'm not going to accept anything less. And like, all right, we'll talk. And I had 2 different recruitment companies, both from London, both based in the UK, wanting me to come work for them. So I had to make a decision who I was going to go with. And Danny Cohen with Computer Futures, I just kind of felt like I felt an instant connection. I felt like we would be equal partners, and that was important to me. And they ended up creating the role for me as a global VP. It didn't even exist before, but they had the vision to see that what I was doing in the community could actually help the recruitment space. And that was back in 2019. So that's kind of how my journey went and how I ended up at Computer Futures as their global VP.
Very cool. So can you tell me about Pep Up Tech? You touched on it a couple times.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Pep Up Tech was started in 2016 by Selena Suarez. She's the initial founder. She and I had met at Dreamforce that summer. Mary Scotton, who's one of my mentors and champions, introduced us. She was like, you two need to hang out. You're both very similar. Selena's from the Bronx. She's like, y'all are very similar. I just think you'll get along. So we hung out at Dreamforce, got along. She knew what I was doing Salesforce Saturday, and she had this idea where she wanted to help more minorities and underrepresented people get into tech, because obviously that's a big problem right now. And she reached out to me at the end of 2016 and asked if I would help her do that. And I'd already had a lot going on, but in all the work that I was doing, I was helping a lot of people, but a lot of the people I was seeing didn't look like me. They weren't Hispanic, they weren't African American, and I felt a sense of responsibility to bring them into it, to share this great opportunity. And I was trying to do it, but I wasn't having a lot of success on my own because I just didn't have the bandwidth. So when she asked me to help her with this, I was like, this is something that's important to me. There's strength in numbers. I want to be a part of this. And so that's how it started in 2016, at the end of 2016. 2015 is when we kicked off. And
okay, so you already had that going before you became VP.
Yes, yep. So it was 2017. 2017 was a crazy busy year for me. Very, very, very busy year. That was before the film even came out. And at that same time, I joined the board of Merivis, which is just like Pep Up Tech, but it helps veterans and their spouses learn Salesforce. So another great thing about Marc Benioff, he has this week-long course that you can learn Salesforce. It's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and it costs $4,500, and companies send their employees to it to learn. Well, what he does, if you're a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, you can take that course for free. as a way to thank veterans for their service. So what Maribus does is it takes that 1 week long program and turns it into a 5-week high touch quality program and provides mentors and coaching, provides that support that veterans lose when they leave the military service. You know, they're used to being part of a team, a troop, and they lose that. And so we do our best to try to give them that back. I'd already been volunteering with them in 2015. Hector and Kate Perez and Joe Castro, right here in Austin, started Maribus at the end of 2015. I started volunteering, going and speaking, telling my story. Like, I don't have a college degree. You can transition. If I can transition into tech, you can transition into tech. So I signed up to be on the board for them in 2017 as well. And I was like, I'm also doing this. My bandwidth may be a little spread thin, but I do think this is important, and I want to do everything I can to help. So I was in charge of fundraising and visibility. So I had to leverage my networks that I'd built with Salesforce Saturday to get people to raise, give money, because, we wanted to take our students to events. That was a big piece of the success with it, because once people met them, they connected and they were like, yes, I want to help them. These are bright, articulate people with potential that we want to help and that can absolutely do this. So that started in 2017. But yeah, so for COVID, we had to adjust because we couldn't go to events. And so we changed it to where if you lost a job during COVID, you could do Pep Up Tech. I don't care if you were making $200,000 a year last year and you're a white male. If you lost your job, you could do Pep Up Tech. So we adjusted, and it's been so great. It's been one of the silver linings, seeing different people that we've brought into it and what they've added to it. One of our guys, his name is Happy. He's a Salesforce Saturday member. He qualified for it as a result, and now he teaches Pep Up Tech every on Saturday. He's turning back and teaching our students. But yeah, so it's what initially started off as for minorities and underrepresented people in our community. If it's over, I was in the process of taking Pep Up Tech Global before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I met in Amsterdam. My community was ready to support them. So once it is global, it's any community that is underrepresented, whatever that looks like in your community, in your space, the underrepresented group, Pep Up Tech will help. We'll skill them up. We'll teach you Salesforce. We'll give you access to our networks, and we'll help you get jobs. Still hoping to take it global once everything gets back to normal. Same with Maribus. I was in the process of taking Maribus global. I had made all the connections and had the people ready to support, and then COVID hit. But yeah, so those are just some of the nonprofits I'm involved with.
Very cool. How do you manage your time between all these things?
Prior to lockdown, I was I was juggling a lot. I'm single. My family's grown.
Hold on. What happened with that boyfriend that was at the Salesforce conference?
We decided we were better off as friends. That ended 2.5 years ago officially, but it honestly had ended years before because I was busy. I was out, doing my thing, and he's still very much in my life. He rents my house in Cedar Park and with my son, so he is family without a doubt. We work better as family and as friends. And he's still a big supporter of me. And as a matter of fact, if I'm doing the dating apps and he gives me feedback, oh, this one's good. This one, no, don't do that. And so, no. He's totally, so yeah, we're great friends.
That is very strange.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah, it is good.
And it's like, to me, it's like, why can't you be? And we didn't disrespect each other. Or there was nobody, it's like, it ended on good terms. I was like, I don't understand why you can't, we also didn't have any kids together. So that probably helped. And he was my longest relationship, and it's probably why. But yeah, no, he's still very much in the picture. We're better as friends, and we recognize that.
Cool. So we talked earlier at the beginning about how you don't have a college degree. I wanted to talk a little bit about, has that posed a big challenge for you as far as like your career? Obviously you're doing well, but in the beginning and things like that, for one, why not? Why didn't you get a degree?
So it did initially, early on it did. So I didn't. So a little background on me, on both sides of my family, my grandparents, the furthest they went to school period was the 3rd grade. They all got pulled out at the 3rd grade to go and work in the cotton fields. Both my parents, the furthest that they went in school was GED, 9th grade. They got their GED. So nobody in my family had ever gone to college prior. So I wanted to. I was a straight A student. I did very well in school. But, I got pregnant at 16, had a daughter at 17, got married at 17. It was my first love. And, I thought, you know how you are when you're young, and it's just love is all that matters. But it was hard.
How long were you in that marriage? You don't mind me asking?
No, absolutely not. I think we got divorced when I was 19 or 20, so a few years. You get in and you realize, you need more than that. And we were different people. Like what was good in high school wasn't necessarily good afterwards. And my daughter even says, she's like, I don't know, how you two were. It was a very physical thing. That's what it was. But we have a wonderful daughter out of it. But yeah, so I didn't, and we struggled. Also, it was hard. Making ends meet, and I didn't even have a car. I tried to do college, but there wasn't Google back then to, because I didn't have a family to land. They didn't know how to go about doing it. So, I tried for a semester, but again, I didn't have a car. I had to bum rides to just go to work at Sam's Club. When I was working at Sam's Club, I had to bum rides to work. And then, so I do the same thing. And I lived out in the boonies in West Texas. There was no city bus or subway to jump on to take me to school. Like I needed a car and somebody's car to get to college. So I went for a semester when I could, but it was obvious. It's like, I'm not going to be able to make this work. I don't have the resources to go to college as much as I would love to. I can't. And I have to work. I have to pay bills. I've got a daughter. I've got a child. And at the time I was a single mom. So I just couldn't make it work. So I went to work, and I did. I worked Sam's. I did retail, worked at Dillard's, and then got married again. And my husband at the time was working at Dell. We moved around. Like I wanted out of Lubbock, Texas. I had to get out of there. And that was one way. Is like, if you can get me out of Lubbock, we'll be together. And he did. He got me to Austin, and he started working at Dell. And this was back in '98, and Dell was exploding. I mean, the stock was splitting left and right. Everybody wanted to work there. And he had told me, he's like, if you would be great at sales, you could do this. And I was like, I don't even know how to use a computer, much less just sell one. I don't even know how to use one. He's like, just go interview. You're really good with people. And so just to shut him up, we've all been in relationships, and your better half is always nagging you. I went just so he would leave me alone about it. I didn't expect to get the job. I went and interviewed, and I got a sales job at Dell. And they put you through a 3-week intensive training program there, and everybody else there had a degree. I didn't. One guy quit his job at NASA to go work there. Talk about intimidating. I was like, wow, they made a mistake. I don't think I was supposed to get hired. This is a big mistake. And they brought me on as a temp. But so yeah, and they tested us every day. They did sales training, they did product knowledge training, and then they did, to manage the system, which was a DOS-based program at the time. If anybody knows what that's like, it's horrible. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And they tested us every single day. And again, there was about 18 to 20 of us. And every single day I ended up in the top 3 for everything. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, we had a final, and everybody stayed after to study. And I was a nervous wreck. I was like, now I want to be here. Before I didn't even want the job. I was like, just shut you up. I'm going to go. Now I was like, I think I could be good at this. And again, but I didn't have a degree, but luckily they hired me, and they had the final. Everybody stayed after to study, and I went home, and I was so nervous. I just was curled up in a ball and was full of anxiety and didn't even study. I was like, they're going to find out that I'm not supposed to be here. This final is going to reveal that I have no business being here. I don't have a college degree. All these people have degrees, computer science degrees. I have no business being here. And then the next day, take the exam. And the environment that it was very competitive. Like, we all knew each other's scores, that they bred that. And so they said all of our scores out loud, and I got the second highest in the class. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. But then the class turned on me immediately. And they're like, whoa, what?
It got really cutthroat?
Yes. They're like, you didn't stay and study with us. You went home. You didn't share your knowledge. Because every point mattered with the way that they ranked us. And that stuck with me. That stayed with me. And they were right. I didn't have enough confidence in myself to be able to contribute and give back to them. So after that, I always made a point to share my knowledge and not to be so insecure about what I brought to the table. And that's when I realized I didn't need a college degree to do that. And that was back in '98. So that set me on the path. They gave me the confidence that I needed to know that for what I was doing at that point, a degree was not necessary for the role that I was in at Dell. And at that time, I was part of the e-commerce team. We were one of the first teams to sell computers online. Our customers were highly intelligent. They knew computers inside and out. So I had to know them in order to sell them and upsell them and get them to spend more money. And that began my path of realizing if I can do this in tech and with computers, I don't have to have a degree. So I had no desire to go back and get a degree. I was like, I didn't need it. For me, I didn't need it. So I initially wanted it, and because I love to learn, I love to read, very competitive. Again, type A driven personality, and I want to make the A's and, do that. But at that point, I was like, I was working at Dell, and great company, and they were exploding, and the stock was splitting. I was like, I don't need it, so why go back and do it?
Do you think that's a big part of what helped boost your confidence, is feeling empowered and that you were able to pull some things off without having that?
Absolutely. Otherwise, I would have continued to work retail. I wouldn't have put myself in those positions because I was like, I don't have, this is the most I can do without a degree.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about college degrees in general? You have a kid. Are you do you encourage it or what?
I do encourage it. My son, he's, ACC, and he works for ACC. There's two school of thoughts when it comes to a college degree. I'm a big believer in knowledge is power, and constantly learning and constantly educating yourself. And college does provide that. Not only does it provide that, but also provides a network. Again, that's
a big part of it that people don't often mention. Is it does provide a network, which is more useful in my opinion than the degree itself, because you can learn anything anywhere.
Exactly,
on the internet.
You absolutely can. Now, thanks to Google and the internet, yes, you absolutely can. But if anybody has learned about the strength and the power of a network, it's me. And so that's what college does offer. It does offer a network. And I've seen it at work. I've seen people who've been able to leverage their college networks to help them succeed and go further. So it depends. It depends on what you're wanting to do. But I wouldn't dismiss it. Now, do you have to spend exorbitant amounts of money and go into debt? No, I don't think that's good either. So again, it just depends on the field, but the networks are valuable, and then the constant learning. Some people need that. Some people need a structured environment to learn. They don't have the discipline to do it on their own. For me, whenever I was hiring a team, if someone had a college degree, what I also looked for was, did you also work while you had the college degree? Because you're going and just doing college only, showing up, and that's your only responsibility. I need somebody who's going to also have other responsibilities, who had to work and could do both. So for me, I look for that whenever I'm hiring. But I'm not dismissive of a college degree by any means. The network is important. And again, some people need structured environments to learn, and others of us don't. I mean, our motto with Salesforce Saturday is always be learning. I don't think everybody should have a growth mindset and should constantly be learning. I like to be in a room where I'm learning something. If I'm in a room and I'm giving all the answers, I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. I want to walk away knowing that I've learned, so somebody taught me something new. And that college does that for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Have you read Carol Dweck's book on mindset?
No.
Oh, well, it talks about having a growth mindset. So I was just curious if you had read it. What advice would you give someone who doesn't have a college degree that, I don't know, is trying to make their way and build some skills?
This is the internet. You don't have to have a college degree. It's more about the strength of your network. I would surround yourself decide where you want to go. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that excites you? And then surround yourself with people that are on that same path, who are doing it, who are starting in the journey at the same place that you are in, and also find those people who've already done it, who've been successful, because you need both. That's one thing that I learned at Dell is my peers that I was in the trenches with, we learned and skilled each other up. People always talk about the importance of mentors and champions, and you got to have those people who've already done it and they've been successful. But the thing is, when you get to a certain place and you're no longer in the weeds, it's just like you're high level. When you're high level and you get a drone or you're looking from the sky up, you can only see so much. You have to be down in the weeds to really see what's going on. So you need both. You need to have those people who are doing it with you. So build that network of peers, mentors, and champions. And if college is part of it, then so be it. But it doesn't have to be. Especially, don't want to put yourself in debt for it. That's the last thing. And not everybody has the financial resources to lean on to get an education. You don't have to. If you do, great. More power to you. Do it, and then turn around and help somebody that doesn't have it, and share that privilege. There's something I like to call delete your privilege bank. People get really uncomfortable talking about privilege, and that they don't want. I don't want to say I have privilege. I wasn't born with privilege. I have privilege now. I used to not, but I do now, and I am happy to share it. I'm happy to use it to help other people level up and get to where they need to go. So build your network and level each other up. And again, you don't have to have a college degree. It doesn't require money. Knowledge is free, thanks, to the internet and our networks, especially your networks.
So you just mentioned that you didn't come from a place of privilege. Can you tell me more about your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom had me when she was 16. So that tends to lend itself to a tougher life. But her family, they grew up very poor. We grew up very poor. I remember many times with my parents, my mom and my stepdad, and I've got 3 siblings from them. Growing up, we would often we moved around a lot because we couldn't pay rent. So like twice a year, we were skipping out in the middle of the night, taking what we could and leaving. And as a result, I never get to tell friends goodbye. But it also taught me to value and make friendships really quickly. We rarely ever had Christmas, didn't have gifts. If we did, it came from like the Salvation Army or the church. I remember moving when I was in the 3rd grade. We moved to Indiana, and
oh, whoa, I'm from Indiana. It's
really
exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it's beautiful. We lived in New Albany and Jeffersonville, Indiana, and Louisville, Kentucky as well. But
cool.
Moving to Indiana in the 3rd grade, and I remember my first day in class, the teacher, she asked, she's like, they're talking about the Indiana state flag, and asked how many stars on the Indiana state flag, and I knew the answer, and I raised my hand.
One?
Oh, you're kidding me! No, oh my gosh. Okay, so
is it 13?
you're about to. It's 13.
Okay,
yes,
it's 13.
So I raised my hand, and I'm like raising my hand. I was like, I know this answer, and nobody else is raising their hand to answer, and I'm just like, what is going on? It's just she finally calls on me, and I was like, it's 13, and she looks around at the class, and she's like, you guys should be ashamed of yourself. This girl from Texas knew how many stars were on our flag, and you guys didn't know.
Because the Indiana state flag is so important.
I don't know how I knew, but I did. And at that moment, I was just like, oh my goodness. And so immediately after class, they all surrounded me, and they were just like, why do you have holes in your shoes?
Did 13 people surround you?
No, the whole classroom. But they did. They're like, what's wrong with your clothes? Why do you have holes in your shoes? And I was just like, I don't know. I just do. And they, even at that moment, they were just like, what are you? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm me. And they're like, are you Chinese? Are you Hawaiian? Are you Italian? And I was like, no, I'm Mexican. They're like, what's that? And I was like, me. And then they were just like, okay. And then we went and played. But, that was pretty common experience for me. Like, why do you have holes in your shoes? Why don't you have nice clothes? Coming back from Christmas, everybody had new clothes, and I never had new clothes. And they talked about it's coming back from summer vacation, all the places they went. I would make stuff up because we didn't go on vacation. That wasn't our life. I mean, my mom worked all the time. She was a nurse. She worked doubles, and my stepdad is a highly intelligent man, but he had an alcohol problem. I described my parents as 2 beautiful broken souls that didn't know how to handle. They didn't have the coping skills to handle what the world threw at them, and as a result, we suffered as kids. We didn't have money. And we were always moving around. So, we didn't have a lot growing up. Christmas was never a big deal for me. It was a point of pain for me. It's like, we're going to be reminded of what we don't have. So that's why I say, I come from a place that there wasn't a lot of privilege. We didn't have a lot. And it's one thing when you're living in a community and you're surrounded by other people who don't have a lot, because then you're not aware of it. But for whatever reason, we always managed to live on the outskirts of nice areas of town, so that all the kids I went to came from means. They had the nice clothes. They had the shoes, the latest style. So I was very aware of what we didn't have, and which was another reason why I focused on my schoolwork and what I could control and what I could do. And as a result, like I said, couldn't go to college, didn't have a car, didn't have the resources, I couldn't figure it out for myself. So when I say, we didn't come from, a place of privilege, I wasn't born with it. At a conference at Dreamforce, we actually did an activity talking about, did you have this? Did you have this? And we added up who had privilege and who didn't. And I had the least amount. It was the year my film came out. It was right after my film came out. We were at an event, and I had 0 privilege. And the person with the highest privilege was Charlie Isaacs. And he'll admit, yes, I was born into privilege. And what's great about that, and what was interesting about the exercise is I noticed people got really uncomfortable when we did this exercise about privilege. People got uncomfortable. They didn't like it. And certain people had their certain amount of
what
privilege.
is this exercise about privilege?
So it's like they ask you, are your parents still together? Did you have a tutor growing up? Did you go to college? They asked different things. And if for every answer that you had a yes, they gave you $100 in Monopoly money. So at the end of the exercise, you added up to see how much money you had.
That is fascinating.
Yes. And I was the only person with zero, goose egg. We had Pep Up Tech students in there that had more money than I had. The people that I'm helping skill up and bring into the Salesforce ecosystem had more privilege than I had. Charlie Isaacs, who's the CTO for Salesforce, had the most. And I took that opportunity at the time to say, I just want to speak up and say, I know y'all see that according to this exercise, I have zero privilege. That's what I was born with. That is not where I am at now. But I also want to highlight Charlie. Yes, he was born into, based on this exercise and the family he came from, he has the most amount of privilege. But the great thing about Charlie Isaacs, since 2016, he has reached out to me, and anything I've done, he's given me money to put on events. He said, how can I help you? Here's some money. You go put on an event. You don't have to worry about it. Donates to Pep Up Tech. He's given so much money to Pep Up Tech. He's donated to Maravis. He uses his privilege for good. And that's always resonated with me. And so I like to say the same thing. I feel like when people get uncomfortable with the word privilege, it's because they don't know how to use it. They see it as a bad thing. It's actually not a bad thing. Privilege is very powerful. That's why it exists. And if you're using your privilege to give back and you're sharing your privilege, then it's a good thing and you won't feel bad about it. I say that I work every day to have privilege, and that the day that I die, I want to leave this life with the same amount of privilege that I came into it with, which is zero. Because then that means I did my job to give back and make the world a better place. That is my goal.
Did you write this beforehand?
No. No.
That's great. I love it.
Thank you.
So after, the whole Salesforce conference explosion that really kind of made you the Salesforce advocate and influencer, I'm sure that you get a lot more attention online, and you probably have to spend a lot more time on your social media channels, and you leverage those to your advantage and to also help people and connect people. Do you have anything about, having to really pay more attention to that? Anything fun happened? Anything interesting?
Social has been quite interesting over the last few years. I was on Twitter. I was forced to do that. Have organically grown to like around 8,000 followers on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm on Facebook because family, you have to do the whole Facebook thing. But Instagram is probably my favorite platform because I feel like it's a space, it's more positive, and I can just see what I want to see. And you can hashtag. The great thing about Instagram, if you hashtag, it opens you up to an even wider audience. So like I always hashtag London, Amsterdam, Boston, Chicago, New York, the places that I've been and where I know people, or if I'm like, watching a certain show, like perfect example, I'm like obsessed with The Boys right now. I love it. A friend of mine was like, he knows I have a thing for superheroes. I was like, you got to watch The Boys.
I love The Boys too. It's hilarious. Actually, Dave told me about The Boys.
Yeah, and I have like really good friends. This was a guy who was a stranger, somebody I went on a date with. And then within the first hour, he's like, you love superheroes, you need to watch The Boys. So I judged all my friends for not telling me about this before. So I was like, you're all fired. Y'all know how much I love superheroes. And I'm just now finding out about The Boys. Really?
And what's great, it's very politically incorrect. Like it's not PC superhero stuff.
No. And it's great. And so like I shared it to my story, and I mentioned The Boys. And next thing I know, Stefan Schwartz, who directed episode 5 on season 1 and episode 7 on season 2, started following me. And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, it's a director. And again, in another life, my second life, as I love movies. I want to write, I want to direct, I want to act. I've done a short, which I produced, and I funded it, and I had the equipment, and I acted in it. So that's something that I'm very interested in. Like I geek out on movies. And so to have a real life director of a show that I love following me, that wouldn't have happened unless I was on Instagram and hashtagging and being part of social. On LinkedIn, I shared a story about Christina Jones, she's a SVP at Salesforce, and she did our Pep Up Tech film. One of my favorite human beings in the world. She's been a great mentor. She's helped me. So she'd done a small clip on that. She'd been highlighted for like a global women's event, and I was sharing her clip on LinkedIn and talking about how important her story is. And Ariana Huffington reshared that post Ariana freaking Huffington. I'm like, what world is this? And she said my name. I was like, I was with family at like LBJ, and of course, half of them don't know who she is. It's my family, and I was freaking out, like about fell out of my chair. I was like, Ariana Huffington, just like she knows my name. She knows my name. She shared my post. So that's a really cool thing about social media is it exposes you to people that you normally wouldn't be exposed to, that you get access to. I've had a lot of crazy experiences like that as a result of social media. I think it's a great. It's there are things. Obviously, you gotta control it, and it could be bad, but there are also good things about it. There's definitely a balance to it.
Yeah, if you use it in a healthy way, it can help you in your career,
Yep.
and it can connect you with people that you have interesting interactions with.
Yep.
But if you turn it into just like a thing that you're just overly concerned about, that's not worth it.
Yep. It should not determine your worth and your value, and it is not who you are. It's a piece of you, and everybody needs to be aware that when they're watching and following people as well. You're not getting the full person. You're just getting one very small piece of them. And I think part of the problem with social media is too many people think that that's who that person is. In my work, in my travels, people think that they know me based on my social. And it's like, this is just one piece of me, and this is what I'm willing to share with you. There's much more to me, and I'm not perfect by any means. And I think that's one of the problems with social is people take it like that's who you are. It's kind of like, I like to describe it like with dating. When you start dating somebody, you're dating their representative for the first 6 months to a year. You're not really dating the real person. You're dating their representative. They're putting their best foot forward. And then after that, then you get to know who the real person is. And it's the same with social.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah, that's one of the complaints about social is people look at it and it's a curated version of everybody's life that makes people feel bad about themselves. Because why am I not doing this? But
Yep.
I like it more as approaches like it's a tool that you can use to help accelerate yourself. But
exactly.
I don't really want to look at it as anything different than that.
And as you grow this podcast and as you get a bigger audience, you're going to see there's some stuff that comes with that. And people are going to, based on what you put out there in social, there's going to be some, you'll run, I've run into it. You'll run into there's some bad stuff with it too.
Absolutely. Joe Rogan says he uses, I think he coined it, the post and ghost. He's like, I just post and ghost, man. Yeah, I don't even look at it.
Yeah. You just go and do it. I like that. I've never heard of that. Post and ghost.
Post and ghost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done.
Yes, you have to, because it'll weigh you down. It really will. And especially once you reach a certain amount of success, people are quick to start tearing you down.
Absolutely.
And they can do it on social. And so you just can't invest that much of who you are into that.
Yeah, I mean, the internet has a way of drawing out everyone's mean side. So yeah, there's no point in even thinking about it.
Agreed.
Hey, FIA listeners, just before this episode is over, I want to give you one more quick friendly reminder to please like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. Thanks again. This has been really great, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming on. We're winding down on time here. This is an Austin podcast, so I like to ask people Austin questions. Do you have any weird stories related to being in Austin or things that you've seen since, there's the whole Keep Austin Weird thing? Yeah,
I've been in Austin for going on 25 years now, so I've seen a lot. I've seen, when Dell was just 3 buildings and fields everywhere, and between here and Pflugerville and Austin was fields, and it felt like it took forever to travel from Round Rock to Austin, but now that's not the case. Probably one of my favorite Austin stories is the obvious South by Southwest. Everybody loves South by Southwest. I was at a VIP party for South by Southwest and
waving that privilege.
Yes, waving that privilege. I took as many people as I could to it, though. I did.
Sharing that privilege.
I was sharing the privilege. Elon Musk was there. Ashton Kutcher was there. There were a lot of celebrities there. And Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg was DJing it. And, and as Snoop Dogg does, he lit up a blunt and passed it down the first row of everybody there. And it's funny when I tell everybody that story, and this was back in 2018.
That wasn't Snoop Dogg. It was Snoop Lion.
Yeah, Snoop Lion. Oh, yeah. I tell people what happened. They're like, well, did you take a hit off of it? And at that point, I'd never gotten high before. I was like, no. Like, you'd never gotten high before, and Snoop Dogg was passing around a blunt, and you didn't take a hit of it? What a great first time getting high story that would have been. I was like, oh, that would have been
Thank you for highlighting my missed opportunity.
Thank you for highlighting my missed opportunity.
I think you just would have woke up the next day, though. So.
Yeah, but that's my weird Austin story.
Cool, I love it. Again, Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I love your story. I love, the whole kind of like the go-getter mentality, starting in a place of no privilege, no college degree, working your way up, really just busting your ass, showing people that you really can do what you want to do. if you involve yourself with the right people and you
Yes,
put
it's
yourself
huge.
in a network and you surround yourself with other people, you're like a perfect example of that whole trajectory. So congrats to you and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and good luck with this. Yeah, I'm excited to keep following y'all and seeing how y'all do.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. As a kid, I loved school. School was my safe place. I was a straight A student, National Honor Society. But I was dealt a hand that wasn't traditional, and that kind of turned my life upside down. So I did not get to go to college. After high school, my first job was working in the cotton fields with my grandfather. Seeing that that was his only way to take care of his family, I felt a responsibility to do better. My husband got a job at Dell. He's like, just go interview. And I was like, I don't know computers. I don't have that experience. Somehow, I got the job, had great managers. I learned so much there. Once I got into the Salesforce platform, it changed everything. I've had so many people help me along the way. My manager at the time, he really believed in me. He's like, yeah, I was looking for someone to own the Salesforce instance, and I found you. He really gave me the confidence to fly. Starting out in the cotton fields of West Texas, now I'm working as a director of technology on the Salesforce platform. That's the direct result of others helping me. So if I can do that for somebody else, I'm going to help them.
Stephanie is the heart and soul of the Austin community.
I started Salesforce Saturday to help others be successful.
A trailblazer to me is someone who leads the way for the next generation.
It's a whole new world. It's evolving and growing. People think they can't keep up with technology, but they can. We show them how to start using Trailhead and they're off to the races. We are encouraging each other, motivating each other, building each other up to be stronger through knowledge.
It's a story of support. It's a story of mentoring. A bunch of great, sweet friends.
There's just this energy.
They give me this power of like, oh, you can do it too. I was like, oh my God, this is it. I can do it.
When you find something you really love, the first instinct is to share it. Now, this is all happening on different sides of the world. Everybody can come together, learn new skills, earn badges, and connect with the community. You really can change the world one person at a time. You help that one person and they help somebody else. It does keep going on and on. And for me, that's been the most satisfying thing.